Good morning, this is Sinta Ebersohn from Fair Divorce, and with me today is Ilze Alberts. She's a psychologist and life strategist, and we're going to talk about things around relationships and the deal breakers. Ilze is also the author of this amazing book, Passing the Torch. I've recommended it previously. It's listed as a resource on my website, and I really advise you to read this. As you can see, I've got notes everywhere, and I'm working with this all the time. So Ilze, thank you very much for being here, and welcome.
Thank you, Sinta, and thank you for making my book one of your resources. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. You recently wrote a piece about the deal breakers in relationships, and you mentioned a few, if I might just quote them: infidelity, financial volatility, substance abuse, the use of pornography, inappropriate behavior towards children, and that's what I'm going to specifically talk to you about today. And the last one was the lack of sexual intimacy. And that prompted me to invite you to this conversation. Inappropriate behavior towards children is quite a problem, as you mentioned in your article, also with single parents. And once we are divorced and we start new families, what we call blended families, it can become quite a challenge. What can you tell us about that in your experience?
Well, the number one reason why blended families don't work or continue to work is the tension that develops between the adults, the life partners, around the management of the children. Very often, when this is the case, one parent will feel that the other partner, the partner who is now also parenting your children, is either too strict, too disinterested, unfair, hostile. And any parent will agree with me, if that is your perception of how your children get treated, you will definitely want to pull away from that person, because parents take their children's side. And that is one of the most difficult things that I find in blended families, is the husband and wife, or the adults, fall in love with each other. They get attracted to each other, but they bring with them the baggage of their previous relationships, the divorce or a broken relationship, if it was not a divorce, and also the children. And children itself do not cause the issues and the problems most of the time. It is how the partnership between the two is managed around the children. And how do you treat each other's children?
And a very common root that I've found in the people that I've worked for is the difference in parenting styles alone. Apart from the expectations from each other in a relationship, the parenting styles differ.
Well, even in families that's not blended, that's still what it's referred to as a functional family. Although I have to say to you, I don't use that word, because blended families can really become functional families equally. But parents in any situation do come from different parenting styles. So one parent will be more leaning towards being strict and the disciplinarian. The other parent will then oftentimes lean towards being lenient, more going with the flow, being more a laissez-faire kind of parent. That happens even with partners that are still married to each other and they're in their first marriages. It's a big challenge for parents. How do we follow that great advice that's been given, that we have to parent from the same page? I tell you what, Sinta, in the more than 30 years that I've been a psychologist, in the 35 years that I've been a parent myself, I must tell you, I don't know how to parent from the same page. All I know is it is important that I understand we all have different parenting styles. And for me to learn to love and appreciate my husband for the way that he's parenting, and not try to change him, because that is what is causing the conflict and the crises in families, especially when parents start to differ in front of their children. And children are so wise, they're so clever, they know exactly how to play that, how to take sides of the more lenient parent. And it can feel for the more strict parent then that everyone is turning against him or her. So that in itself can create another family dynamic. But for me, my advice that I give to parents, please know that you will parent from different pages. You will. You will have different things that are of high importance and high priority to you in the parenting of your children. For instance, one parent might say, I am really have a high priority on raising my children with independence and self-reliance. And you might be married or in a relationship with a parent who says, my parents just raised me so independently and I just had to rely on myself and I never felt they were there for me. Therefore, I'm going to raise my children that I'm there for them, I'm in their lives, and I want them to actually stay a bit more dependent on me for a longer period of time. There in itself, the needs of the different parents create that clash between parenting styles. So we have to know from which pages do we come from.
Yes, that's challenging. And where do we draw the line? When is the difference in parenting okay, and when does it become a deal breaker?
It's a deal breaker when the two of you cannot learn to manage it. When it creates so much stress and anxiety and fightings between the two adults that the children also start to suffer from that. When the parenting styles or the differences in parenting styles become such a contamination in the relationship. Very often, Sinta, that is also then being used as the scapegoat of that is why I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. There will be many other reasons, but that can then become the tipping point of, no, this is not working for me anymore.
A question that I'm often asked, what role does the children play? Because I often get feedback from parents that there's a child that was raised by a more lenient parent, and the other parent might be more strict and have more rules and structure. And then the child that was raised in a more lenient manner becomes resistant or even rebellious and resentful towards the other parent. To what extent must parents allow that to dictate how they manage the relationship?
That's a great question. I also then want to set a foundation to say that a child needs all kinds of parenting styles to learn to grow up into responsible, well-rounded adults. If both parents are lenient, laissez-faire, more allowing, the child can grow up as more self-righteous. Things must just be done my way, expecting that life must be easy. The parent who is, if children are raised by two parents that's just very strict and very controlling, that in itself can create a lot of rebellion in a child. So it's really important to have a combination of all the different parenting styles. And in a working relationship, which we can also maybe call a more healthy relationship, two parents will take turns. And I have seen so many times, in my family, I'm the more strict one, because for me, that is, my perception is I want to really help my children to understand boundaries, to know that for every choice you make, there's a consequence, because that to me is an incredibly important life lesson. But my husband is far more lenient. He's the softer guy, the more playful one. And you can look at us and say, they will like him more and want to be with him more. But it doesn't work like that. You form your relationship with your children and you fill each other. You fill each other. The time that he gets upset with them, the time that he's a strict one, immediately I go into the opposite role and I become the lenient one, the supportive one. And I can see when I'm the strict one, he becomes the lenient one, because we are the two poles of the magnet. And children need those two poles of the magnet to learn to deal with all kinds of different situations in their lives. If you put a child in cotton wool and both parents raise a child in cotton wool, the child actually become more codependent, less self-reliant, and very often becomes the target of a bullying outside of the family. Or it might be even a bullying by a sibling, bullying at school, because if in the absence of some toughness to help me to grow, if parents don't play that role, someone else will play that role. That is how life works. Because for us to grow and become the best versions of ourselves, we can't just be in cotton wool, have support, have it all nice, have it all working in our favor. You know, Sinta, you and I know it so well. It is through our challenges that we grow the most. It is in those times of support and when it's easy that we just rest and restore ourselves.
Yes, I agree with you. And I love what you're saying about needing more than one parenting style when you're growing up. That is so valuable, because that gives us a wider experience. And that's why I also believe it's good for children to go to school and do sports and do all sorts of things where they deal with other adults in their lives and they get to know their different styles of raising them or teaching them or just, you know, treating them. And it gives them a much broader base to develop and learn valuable lessons about life.
Absolutely. And it is so obvious for me when I watch parents. You know, I've used this example so many times when I did my parenting courses with parents, that there's a really great tip I want to give you. So the family is driving in the car. Dad is driving the car, mom is sitting in the passenger seat. The 2 or 3 kids are on the back seat. And you're going, you're on a trip, you go on holiday or you go and visit somebody. The kids on the background, on the back seat let me start. Mom and dad in the front seat. Dad puts his hand on mom's leg, says to her, this is such I just love having my family with me. And she gives his hand to squeeze and says, me too. Within minutes, the kids on the back seat start to squabble. There is an argument because they're fighting about something. You're sitting on my side, you're too close to me, you breathe, you chew too loud, whatever. That fighting starts. And the fighting goes more and more and more and more. Mom turns around and says, stop it, kids. And the kids, of course, don't listen because they might be trained to only stop when mom has counted to 3 or 2 3/4.
Yes.
And it goes on. She turns around again and says, kids, stop it right now. And you know, Sinta, because I know you're a parent as well, when they have pushed you completely over the edge, you turn around and you just slap to the back. Yeah. Because you do it in absolute, you're exasperated. And your husband looks at you and says, how dare you do that to the children? We have agreed never to smack the kids. And now the fight becomes between mom and dad. What happens in the back seat? The kids stand together. They're quiet. They look at each other and they become a huge support for each other. So it happens in families. Dynamics shift. The dynamics it's playing in all different dimensions. And when parents are not in a good space with each other, most of the times the children stand together. When the children are not in a good space with each other, parents start to stand together in their parenting. So it all depends what is happening in families, but what is happening to parenting styles. And I want you to also know, we apply all the parenting styles in different times in our lives. I'm 100% certain of that. So if I want to be arrogant and say, I am never lenient and I'm always just the disciplinarian, and I don't know why I have to be the disciplinarian, that's a lopsided perception, because we are all the parenting styles. We as parents, as grown-ups, choose in every moment which parenting style we want to use.
That is groundbreaking news. We all use all the parenting styles. That must just sink in. We are not just one kind of parent. And thank you for thank you for saying that, because that is so valuable. It's true. And it's interesting what you're saying, that the dynamics between parents, we kind of fill each other and we kind of play around and balance each other out in the parenting role. But there should be some kind of mutual understanding or agreement between parents for that to happen.
Well, it's a great idea, and I do suggest that with parents, and that was one of my exercises in my parenting courses as well, is to have a vision for how we want to raise our children, and have a vision in all areas of life. How do we want to raise them spiritually? Or if religion is important, in a religious sense. How do we want to raise them mentally? How do we want to raise them in how they are scholars and one day they're going to be somebody with a business or an employee? How do we want to raise them financially? And how do we want to raise them around family relationships? And how do we want to raise them to become great social beings? And how do we want to raise them physically? And once you go and you really ponder and talk about this, because this is just a framework that I'm mentioning here, and you set yourself a vision for how you want to raise your children, then when those difficult times come, and you have, for instance, said, and you both agreed, and you've written it down, it's there on the manifestation, you printed it out, that's our vision for our parenting of our children. And one of those is that we want to raise our children to become financially wise adults. And now there is a disagreement. Your firstborn is 18 years old. Your husband says he's going to buy your 18-year-old a brand new car that is very safe, because he's very safety conscious. He wants to make sure there's all the airbags, and the brakes are very sophisticated, and you don't agree with that. You say, no, it can be a second-hand car, and you get good second-hand cars as well with all those safety features. Now you're in a disagreement about it. You go back to your financial vision for your children, and you just discuss which one of these two choices, the brand new car or the second-hand car, will help our child to grow into financial independence or financial wisdom the most. And then to have that as a conversation. And I find when you take the vision and you go back to the vision every time, and you discuss, how's this that we are in disagreement about? How is that going to help us to fulfill our vision for our kids? And that very often will bring parents closer to be on the same page.
That's interesting. I don't think many parents do that. There should be included in the standard parenting 101 training.
Yes.
And especially with blended families. But it makes me think, what if I have a child who is 16 and I am in a blended family now, and I actually am of the opinion that my child has already been raised, he's practically grown up for all intents and purposes, and there's not much to be done. So my expectation is that my partner should not interfere. I have a sort of a hands-off attitude. Leave him alone. He's old enough to make his own decisions and do his own thing, for example. What if I'm in a situation like that? How does that impact the other parent or other siblings, for example?
Well, that's an interesting question, because that happens so often in blended families. it's important for you as life partners to be very open about where do I come from in my parenting? Because the way that we end up parenting our children is very influenced and impacted by the way we got parented. So if you agree with the way that you were parented, you will want to continue that form of parenting. If you were in disagreement and you really disliked and even despised the way that you were parented, you will hear yourself say things like, I will never be like my mom or my dad. And I will raise my children in the complete opposite way. So you have to first understand, where are we both coming from? Why is what, in the way that we parent, why is that important? Then the second thing, Sinta, is to remember in a blended family, blood is thicker than water. And in a blended family, every parent will take their child's side first. And that is just biologically how we are made. It is the survival of the race. We have children so that our next generations will continue. And you are there to protect and provide for your child. If you perceive now that there's a threat to your child, you are going to want to protect, even if the threat is the life partner is not agreeing about how you're treating your child. It is important to remind yourself, blood is thicker than water. And in this situation, what is more important for me? My relationship with my life partner or my relationship with my child? What do you think 99.9 parents will say? Which one is the most important?
The child, probably.
The child, yes. And that is, we can't get away from that. That is an absolute human behavior that happens in all blended families. And it's wise for you to know that your life partner will be on the side of his or her children as you will be. And it's easy for you to oversee the shortcomings, the misbehaviors, the challenges of your own child. And you know what? We have razor sharp focus on the misbehaviors, the challenges of the children that's not our blood. And to be very aware that you are biased. And if your partner is hard on your kids, to go and see, how are you co-creating the hardness? Is it because you are too soft, too lenient, too laissez-faire, and he's just playing the opposite parenting role out? And how is that of a benefit to your child? If you just ask yourself those two questions, the whole way that you look at it will start to change. And when you change the way you look at your partner's parenting style, your partner's parenting style will change. I want to repeat this again because it's very important.
I think so.
So the first thing is I'm teaching this to all my online programs. With all my clients I work with, they know my two things I'm teaching. I say, you know this thing where we say, I point a finger at somebody and 3 fingers pointing back at me. So the finger I'm pointing at my partner is I accuse him or her of something. I dislike something in him or her. And I do not even for a moment realize my partner is my mirror. And I will be wise to look in that mirror and say, where are moments I do the same? So for instance, let's say it's, you talk about a 16-year-old, say it's a boy, you perceives that you're absolutely correct. You are finished raising your boy of 16 years old. There's no more raising to be done. There's just the reinforcement of behavior. But he's now shouting at your 16-year-old, and you really cringe when he does that. But you've been soft and lenient with your 16-year-old. And I say for instance, 16-year-old before lockdown and curfews, the curfew time was 11 o'clock and he arrives home after 12. And you just say, no, that's okay. He's just a 16-year-old teenager. And your life partner says, no, that's not okay. And wants to really be strict about the breaking of the curfew. And now you blame your partner and say he's too strict. He's not understanding. He is really hard on him. And you go and ask yourself, that's what I point the finger about. Where do I do the same? There are moments that I'm too strict. There are moments that I'm too hard. There are moments that I'm unfair. Because the moment you do that, you start to change your perception and your judgment goes softer. And then the second one, I say to parents, to people, to everyone I work, children, teenagers, grown-ups, please learn to look through these glasses. One is a positive lens, one is a negative lens. If you look at your life partner with your 16-year-old teenage boy who's broken curfew and you were accepting of it, then your life partner wants to have bring consequences in for the teenage boy, and you only see the negatives for your teenage boy and for you, you will be very angry with your partner. But if you put the positive lens on as well and say, what are the benefits for my teenage son that he is getting, that consequences of his behavior are going to be enforced, and he's going to be grounded for a weekend or for a month. What are the benefits for him? Because the moment you start to ask yourself the benefits for your child and you start to honestly see it, your whole perception of your life partner will change. It's hard work. It's really not easy, but I am 100% certain that it's making a massive difference. And I don't know, Sinta, of anything more profound than changing the way you look at situations, changing the way you look at your life partner, especially in a blended family, in the way that he or she treating your children. If you just change the way you look at it, you will be amazed at how things will change in your family.
Yes, that's very true. Very true. Ilze, I want to ask you, what about the parents, the biological parents of a child in a blended family who's now separated or divorced? So there's one biological parent with a step parent, I don't like the word so much, in this family, and the other biological parent is outside of this relationship. What role should that outside parent play in the family dynamics here when it comes to raising the children and discipline and rules and boundaries and all that sort of stuff?
So it's the same when there are two homes. So I always say to children, your parents were husband and husband and wife divorced each other. Parents never divorced their children. So you always have two homes. And we talk about the ideal situation where both parents are still very involved in the child's life. And there are two homes. There's mom's house and there's dad's house. And both homes are your homes. And they are, so you have two homes. And you learn to go between the two homes on a very regular basis. And in each home, every parent will have their set of parenting styles. What we know is when the children are mostly with mom and just have visitation to dad, maybe every second weekend, sleeping over every Wednesday night, that the parent who sees the children the least oftentimes become the more lenient parent, because, and the reason for that is, Sinta, that their perception is, if I don't make it so nice for my kids to be with me, they're going to say they don't want to come anymore. And I might lose my children. That's an immense fear for especially the dads, because it's most of the time the dads who don't have I know there's joint custody, but the children are in many cases mostly with mom. So dad becomes a Father Christmas. It's nice to go to dad because he allows us to watch TV all till late at night. He allows us to not put our dirty dishes in the kitchen. He does it for us all, and we get takeaways there. We don't have to eat healthy. Getting back to mom's house, why didn't you put things in the dishwasher? No, we can't order more takeaways. And now you have to switch off the TV. Oh, we like it so much more at dad's house. We really like dad more. We want to go and live by dad. Now the playing off starts. We call that manipulation, masterful manipulation. And it's wise for mom in that case to say, I can hear it's really nice for you by your dad's house. To first of all, acknowledge the child. I can hear it's really nice at dad's house. But, and that's the second step, the boundary. But in this house, we switch off the TV at whatever time, or whatever, so let's use the TV as the example. In this house, the TV gets switched off at this hour every night. And to just help the children to understand. I hear you, I understand, I hear it's nice at dad's house, but in this house it works differently. And if a parent does it with confidence and with certainty, and also with a warm, caring relationship and understanding it's nice at dad's house and not feeling threatened by it, because both parents feel, what if I lose my children? What if they stop loving me? And I say to parents, children will never, ever, ever stop loving their parents. And parents will never, ever, ever stop loving their children. The only time when parents or children divorce their parents if they are really, really broken relationships.
Yes. Okay. Well, it brings me back to what you said earlier, that a parent will always take their child's side. I've had instances like this where a child complains and starts that manipulation. And then parents often have a very emotional reaction, and they are perturbed by it and say things like, my child is not happy in this house, my child doesn't feel welcome here, and there's a whole emotional reaction to it. Whereas they should actually just be calm and set the boundaries and maintain the rules of that household. But when is it really a problem? When should a parent be alarmed?
Sinta, when the child's behavior is impacted, the child's behavior starts to change. And there are quite common ways that we see children's behavior change. They become more withdrawn. Say, for instance, a child that loves to spend time with friends, stop playing with friends, wants to, I'm not talking about that typical teenager who likes to lie in their bedroom and close the door, but now this is the child who starts to become more withdrawn, wants to be on their own in their room, becomes more aggressive or crying more, becomes more emotional, battle to sleep, so I can't fall asleep, I can't stay asleep. So it has to be a combination of things. It can't be just one of these things I'm mentioning. There's a change at school, school marks are dropping, and those are red flags for parents to, in a combination, to listen to it and say, wonder what's happening in the world of my child. What is contributing to my child's anxiety or unhappiness or challenges? And to listen because children do make comments. We can't listen to everything they say because they can also say things to be manipulative without them knowing that is what they're doing. But if there's a theme, keep on coming up, it's a red flag. And I really say to parents, please do something about it. Please do something. And the best thing to do is go and seek professional help, because we as parents are not trained to now to deal with our children's problems and challenges.
And talking about those typical teenagers, what advice do you have for parents when they have defiant teenagers who set ultimatums, who say, I don't like your partner, so you have to choose. It's either me or your partner. Or something like, I refuse to come to you as long as you have this partner. What advice do you have with that?
I will definitely, before I even have a conversation with my child, I will want to know, I will go and think, what is happening here? Is my child saying this oftentimes, saying, I don't want to come to your house if she is there? It means there's a break in my relation with my child. I will first focus on restoring my relation with my child. And I will say, I will make sure that on Friday nights when you come, that if it's a new relationship and the female is not living with the dad yet, that we will have once a weekend that's only you and me. If that person, if the new partner is now definitely part of the relationship and live in the same home, I then say to parents, please go and have a weekly time that you spend with your child, with your teenager, outside of home, just the two of you. First, please go and restore and build the relationship back to a place of where we can be honest and open with each other and where the child feels safe with the parents. So and then to take it from there only, only take it from there. Once I have spent that one-on-one time with my teenager to say, do you think that it's okay for us now to bring her into one of our breakfasts now and then? And to slowly build that bridge, sometimes so slow, you have to listen to the teenagers, because if they say, I'm not coming to you, many of them will be serious and stop doing it. And that's heartbreaking for both the teenager and the parents.
It's a difficult situation, and we want our children to be happy and feel safe and secure with our relationships.
Yep.
So how do you know when it's just manipulation, when they're just being difficult for no apparent reason?
Well, that's also a good question, but parents usually can see that this is manipulation because, let's make it a very practical example. Your 15-year-old son said, Dad, please buy me a new PS, a PlayStation. I want the latest PlayStation. Dad says, no, my son, I can't afford it. Or no, it's not, maybe he doesn't say I can't afford it. He says, no, I just bought you the previous PlayStation not even a year ago. And now if the 15-year-old son knows if I push my dad's buttons, he's possibly going to give in and buy me the new latest PlayStation. And that is when manipulation can step in and say, Dad, I'm not going to come to you. At Mom's house, I've got the latest PlayStation, and I'm staying with Mom. I'm not going to you. That's a form of manipulation. You have to really go and look at manipulation in context. You can't just, I can't tell you out of context how to know that it's manipulation.
It depends from situation to situation.
Absolutely, yes. And listen, our kids are masterful manipulators. They know just how to do it with us. I watch my children, they grown-ups. Oh my goodness. I know, I can see how they play me. I see it, I know it. And I still at times allow it.
Yes, we have to. Just one more question. There are people who say that in a blended family, each parent must only discipline their own children and leave discipline of the other children to their parent. What is your view on that?
That's a great question. My view on that is that you have to earn the right first to discipline another child. So your first focus, I really guide you in, is build a relationship with the child. If you just become the disciplinarian without building a relationship, you have not earned the right to discipline, because you're not a teacher at school. And even teachers at school have relationships with their kids in their classes. So build a relationship first. Leave the discipline to the biological parent, and only only when there's a warm, caring relationship can you start to test out, have I earned the right to discipline? It's difficult, Sinta, because we as adults don't know how to keep ourselves back, and you want to step in, and very often you want to go and discipline because you want to protect your partner. You can see the little one or the teenager is busy pushing mom or pushing dad, and you want to step in and protect your partner. But first build a relationship. And when there's a relationship, you have then earned the right to discipline. But
Yes.
leave the discipline mostly to the biological parent, unless the biological parent says, please help.
Yeah, it's a
And
matter of gaining respect also.
Yeah, and over years, I mean, if you now blended family for a couple of years, you become a normal family where both parents discipline. Both parents play a role in the raising of the kids.
And my last question is, because I know you have a blended family yourself as well, and you said just now that your children are grown up. Does the parenting carry on forever, or does it stop at some stage?
I perceive that parenting continues forever. And for me, that is a very different form of parenting. Now I am more friends with them, but I'm still their mom, and I'm their go-to person. And they know they can turn to me as their mom anytime. I'm there for them. I'm their catch net. I'm the one that will help them with the emotional difficulties. I do have, I have 2 biological children, and I have my one heart child. I don't like the child, the stepchild. It's got such a negative connotation to it. He's my heart child for 15 years already. I met him when he was 4, and he left for London yesterday to go and study there. And I tell him my heart was so sore. I consider him my child. I say I have 3 children. He is my child, although he was born in my heart. Do I discipline him? Not often. I will say, listen, this is not a hotel, and since when do we leave all the dishes for the mom to pack away? Come on, please pack the dishwasher for me. That will be my form of discipline. If with the bigger, harder things, I leave that to dad. I also, with my own children, if there are things to step in, I have earned the right, because I've built a relationship for many, many years with them, and they feel the safest with me. So I perceive I've earned the right to be the one that step in and put down the strong boundaries. I don't expect my husband to do it, because in any case now he's a good guy and I'm the bad cop.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. And it's such a wealth of advice. I really appreciate it. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You are so, you're welcome, Sinta.
Always a pleasure to learn from you, and I look forward to doing more of this again soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.